restoration process. And I am a machinist and a mechanic by hobby. I'm not by profession a machinist, and I don't think that that would really be healthy. I work right now 5 days a week, every day. This hobby of mine is something that I pursue strictly after hours, after the workday. I do not work until 8, 10 o'clock at night. I work until 5 o'clock, and I have the discipline to say, look, there is a time for work, and there is a time for a hobby, and there is a time for a family. There's a time for, you have to kind of split your day up and find time for each of the things that need to be done. And I work on the weekends. I have a very understanding wife, my wife Catherine, who understands that I have a passion for these things, and she allows me the time to work on them. So I spend my time in a machine shop disassembling the motorcycles that I'm restoring. I myself refinish them. By refinishing, I'm specifically referring more to the mechanical end. Paint work, I find that you can find 10 people who can paint better than me in a 10-mile radius from my house. As a matter of fact, the paint work that I have done on my vehicles, I have done at the closest auto body shop to my house. Those guys there, they understand my standards, and I find most body shops always have a couple of people who are really good, and they work with me. But I do the machining and the manufacturing of the parts that I need. I have a complete machine shop with a Bridgeport milling machine, a hard-hinge lathe, which I use those machines to reproduce the pieces that you would need to have these vehicles running. Because when you're talking about a vehicle that's now almost 100 years old, ultimately, a vehicle that old might in fact be missing components or missing parts, or have parts that are worn. And remember, when you take a vehicle like a motorcycle and you drive it down the road, everything has to be working. You have to have proper engine, and of course you have to have proper brakes and safe tires and safe wheels and spokes and axles. And so 100% of the components have to be operational. And to have that on a vehicle that's over or close to 100 years old is certainly unusual. And I try to engage others that are like me, that are not just collectors, but that do the work themselves. Those are the people that I find very interesting to engage with. Those are the craftsmen, and those are the people that I like to learn from. Yeah, when I was very young, probably 6 or 7, my father had already been a collector of Mercedes cars, and he had a background in that, and he engaged me very often in the projects that he was working on, which were a series of old Mercedes cars, old meaning from the 30s, and he also made a point to collect Mercedes cars that were a little bit newer than that, into the 50s and then 60s, 70s, and onward. And I was always involved in somehow helping him with. He never really needed my help, but he was smart enough to realize that by engaging me in his hobby, that perhaps some of what he had a passion for would rub off on me, and it did. And so I helped him, and I learned a little bit. And as I got older, I began also to take on an interest in restoring, in particular, German vehicles. I had an affinity towards them from his German background. I saw a certain level of quality in them, and I saw a certain level of precision that was that I found interesting to me. And I began to myself collect cars, but I wanted a more sporty car. BMW to me was a much more sporty brand, certainly at that time. And at that time, I'm referring to the 70s, the late 70s. That was a time when BMW cars had a niche of being a sporty car, and Mercedes was more of a luxury automobile. And after being involved in restoring some of these vehicles, every young man, when he starts out, one of the biggest problems for most collectors is they never have enough garage space. And so once you're done restoring your car, you have to find a place for it, because you want to move on to the next one and maybe enjoy that one or that process or that project. And very shortly, as time went on, I got married, and my wife, she knew that I had a passion other than her. Of course, her being number one, and my passion for automobiles being the second, or my passion for restoration, I should say, being the second. I decided that, motorcycles might be something that would be interesting for me to restore and get involved with. And motorcycling is a very different thing to many different people. Most people, it's about the wind in the hair, the freedom, yes, the excitement of the ride. For me, motorcycling was always about the machine, the quality of the machine and how it worked and so on. And I was always fascinated with fine machinery. And to me, the BMW brand represented the finest of machines. And I began to restore BMW motorcycles. And with a motorcycle, whenever you're done with it, you could always find a corner to put one. And I grew the collection at some significant points in the collecting. I had to stop and say, look, I need to now build another garage, because even with motorcycles, which are small, I was running out of space. So my wife, we moved in 1986 to the house that we're in here today. And the house, I was not really thrilled with it. My wife found the house on the market, and I saw the house, but it had fantastic property. We are almost on 2 acres here. And I said, boy, I could build a nice garage in that backyard. I don't think my wife really knew that was the attraction I had to the property, but it worked out. And ultimately, I was successful in building a rather large garage, the largest legal garage in all the town of Huntington. And from there, which I thought would be enough space, that would have been about 1,800 square feet with 2 levels. Totaling therefore, it was probably around 3,000 square feet total. I thought that's definitely enough for my collection. And then as the collection grew, I needed to build again, and I went to the town to build another garage, and that was a little bit difficult. But I did get the approval, and I built another garage of almost another 1,500 square feet. And then I very quickly filled that, and I realized that, look, I better do this once more, because building a structure like I have is difficult. And I built an art gallery, and an art gallery is a permitted use, nobody would argue that what I've created here is in fact an art gallery. So that added substantially another 7,500 square feet to my ability to store my art collection, my vehicles. So I now have my private museum here in Huntington, and I open up to individuals and groups on a prearranged basis that I feel might enjoy to see the space. And most of the time, I think they're very pleased with what they see. So I was approached by Lois from the Reboli Center about, perhaps showing something from my collection at the center. And I wanted to think about what would it be that would be interesting for members to see. It's always good to tell a story with something that you have, assuming there is a story attached to it. I thought that I would discuss with Lois the possibility of showing 2 pieces from my collection, 2 motorcycles that are both almost now 100 years old, that are completely different but completely the same. And of course, what I mean by that is 2 motorcycles that are of the same manufacturer, of the same year, or of the same model, but one is completely restored, pristine, with new nickel plating and new painting and new striping, engine running, overhauled, all the components in working shape. And then another motorcycle which has many of those same attributes, but not the refinishing attributes. In other words, it still runs, it still operates, it still can be used reliably, but it has never been restored. So this motorcycle would be something that has been used over the last 90 to 100 years, and has been ridden that when something wore out, it was only repaired and nothing was ever overhauled or refinished or replated. And that to me is an interesting story, because when you look at these two different motorcycles, you see something completely different. And to most people, when they look at the unrestored motorcycle, they see the life of the vehicle. It's like an older person. You see the bangs and the hits and the scars of life, of going through life. And the new restored motorcycle, of course, this is all completely missing. You've erased all of that. But yet it comes and it shines like a new jewel in the sun. And so if you have an opportunity to inspect these pieces that I've loaned to the Reboli Center, you need to look at those two aspects and think about that, about the one bike that has been completely restored and is pristine and beautiful to look at and also beautiful to ride, and then the other motorcycle which shows its wear and tear and the sagging of the rubber pieces and so on. And you decide yourself which you like better, and you think a little bit about which affects you more emotionally. And I'm always interested to hear people's reaction on after viewing two bikes like that.